Hi everybody, it's Mike. I'm one of the admins of the Moon Landing Hoax Facebook group, and today I want to talk about a particular law that came passed by Congress and signed by the President, brought by this particular senator I'm showing on my screen with you, is brought by Senator Gary C. Peters, and it's called the One Small Step to Protect Human Heritage in Space Act. I'm showing you on the congress.gov website when it became law. It became law December 31st, 2020. Okay, so this was passed a while back, and this is something that people that have wanted to cover up and prohibit researchers and companies and other governments from discovering that Apollo was indeed a hoax from publishing that truth. So what happened was this law was passed in 2020, and I'm sharing screens with you to show you what it says. And this particular law, when you look at it, I got a screenshot and I've highlighted in yellow the relevant parts of it that I want to discuss with you. Okay, so the purpose of the law, it says, it is the sense of Congress that as commercial enterprises and more countries acquire the ability to land on the moon, it is necessary to encourage the development of best practices to respect the principle of due regard and to limit harmful interference to the Apollo landing site artifacts in acknowledgement of the human effort and innovation they represent, as well as their archaeological, anthropological, historical, scientific, and engineering significance and value. Okay. Then it goes on to say that the administrator of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, shall, okay, put in place the recommendations to spacefaring. There's a document, it says they're going to bring into law and follow, and that document is NASA's recommendations to spacefaring entities how to protect and preserve the historic and scientific value of U.S. government lunar artifacts. It was issued by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, on July 20th, 2011, with updates October 28th. So basically, by the way, I'm actually a licensed and practicing attorney, as well as the administrator, one of them for the Facebook Moon Landing Hoax Group with close to 42,000 members, by the way. So, I practice law for a living and I'm discussing law, so I believe I'm qualified to talk about this with you, okay? So what is going on? What they're trying to do is prevent companies and governments from going anywhere near the Apollo landing sites. And why are they doing that? I guess it's to limit harmful interference. So maybe some type of government is going to go ahead and I don't know, spray paint graffiti on the landing sites. I don't know, right? But let's take a look at it. There's a document that is that was referenced earlier, published in 2011. I'm going to pull it up here, and the document in question is NASA's recommendations to spacefaring entities. So I'm going to go to the part of the document where it limits going anywhere near these sites. Okay, so let's find it here. There we go, one more back. Okay, so it says here, I'm sharing screens with you, descent landing boundary, DL. The DL boundary is defined as the outer perimeter that establishes an exclusion radius for the approach path of any lander/spacecraft toward any USG heritage lunar site. So they're breaking them down, right? For heritage lander sites, example Apollo Surveyor, And Apollo, of course, as you know, are the missions purporting to have landed men on the moon. This group does not deny per se that unmanned craft have landed on the moon. We think that that is commonplace perhaps in the 1960s and 70s going forward, and countries have landed on the moon, and that's what they refer to as surveyor. And then they say for heritage impact sites, Ranger, SIVB. So they have two different, as you can see here, different classifications of sites. So for the heritage lander sites, where ostensibly men have landed on the moon, so they claim, which of course we doubt for reasons we've gone into many times, and you can look at my prior live streams for evidence of that. This is live stream number 16. I've got 15 of them prior where I lay out the evidence, and you can go to our Facebook group, The Moon Landing Hoax. Don't forget the hyphen between the moon and landing, of course, and look us up, and we have countless proofs and evidence that we can share that the Apollo missions purporting to have landed men on the moon, of course, are faked. But nonetheless, that's what they're talking about when they refer to Apollo and the moon. It says, this boundary thus defines an area beginning at the lunar surface site of interest and extending to a 2-kilometer radial distance from the site where no overflight of a landed spacecraft may occur. So what they mean is that no craft, unmanned or otherwise, can go within 2 kilometers of any stuff or artifacts pertaining allegedly to the Apollo missions that landed on the moon. So Apollo 11, even 10 purportedly landed on the moon, not with a man, but with an unmanned craft. Apollo 10 tested that. So that would include Apollo 10. And then 11 was the one where allegedly all those damn footprints are, which of course are fake, as we know. 12, and then 13 didn't land on the moon. 14, 15, 16, and 17. So those are the ones we believe are faked. Apollo 8 as well, because it allegedly orbited the moon. So 8, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17 were the ones they had to fake, because no craft with human beings has gone beyond low Earth orbit, which of course is about 200 to 400 miles above in the Earth's atmosphere in outer space. So human beings can circle the Earth in low Earth orbit. They can't go beyond that because they will be killed by the radiation, of course. So the only spacecraft allegedly taking men, human beings, if you will, beyond low Earth orbit, which is only about the distance from New York to Boston, okay, and the International Space Station sits at about that height above the Earth. The moon, of course, is 240,000 miles away. Why has no other human being gone beyond low Earth orbit? Well, it's because of the radiation. The radiation will fry any human being. I guess the more particular term would be the particles would destroy the tissue of humans, and then they would get nasty forms of cancer, and they would die because of the particles from exploding stars throughout the universe. So how it works, to any newcomers to the site, just to give you a little background, is Earth has an iron core. The iron core projects a magnetic field. Magnetic field surrounding the Earth traps the deadly particles of radiation from our own sun and solar flares from our own sun. Now, some radiation gets past those boundaries with the iron core that projects the magnetic field, of course, and that's why you hear things like, you can get skin cancer sometimes from the solar rays, but most of the deadly radiation is protected by this magnetic field. And then the other more problematic issue with the radiation in space is the exploding stars, because the universe, for all I know, is infinite. I don't know exactly how big it is, but there are countless stars in the sky. They explode, and throughout the billions of years the Earth has existed, those exploding stars and the particles from them travel near us, and they would kill us if we went outside of low Earth orbit, right? So anyway, moving on here, the heritage impact sites So what that means is perhaps any craft that has crashed on the moon. So what they're saying is there's a 2-kilometer radial distance for a site, where there was a surveyor craft that landed, or the Apollo manned missions purported to have went. Okay, it says this boundary prevents the plane of the descent trajectory from crossing into exclusion radius at any point during the descent, thus remaining tangential to the boundary. It is incumbent on each visiting spacecraft to ensure no intrusion into this boundary during descent and landing, including nominal and off-nominal operations. What is the rationale? They say the 2-kilometer exclusion radius applies to descent approach path of the visiting vehicle to address 3 main concerns during descent. Number 1, overflight, possibility of creating high velocity particles during descent, directly impinging plume on the heritage site. And then they say near overflight, exhaust blown dust onto the site. So those are kind of the same things, roughly, number 1 and 2. They don't want particles from spacecraft flying over the sites, I guess, to get dust and dirty up or messing up those sites, right? Because they're important, and by gosh darn it, we have to preserve them, of course. Now, nobody can see the damn sites for reasons I'm going to get into a little bit now and in much more detail at a future live stream, of course. But we have to preserve them even though we can't see the damn things. I know the trolls in our group like to claim that you can point a telescope at the Earth and see the landing sites. No, you cannot see artifacts. You can just see barren landing sites because you would need a mirror in the telescope much, much bigger than has ever been produced by a human being. Ridiculously larger than the biggest mirror in existence in order to resolve objects that far away. You just can't do it. It's impossible. You need to send a craft to look at the landing sites close up to verify that those Apollo artifacts are still there. And guess what? You're not allowed to do that, of course, right? Why is it? Isn't that interesting, right? And they say system failure during descent. So what they're concerned with is that, the ascent stage from one of the Apollo landing sites allegedly is still there. And I'll share screens with you to show how ostensibly it worked. Let me see if I can find one. I'll pull one up here. Here it is. So this bottom part I'm circling here, this ostensibly is the descent stage of the lunar lander. So the descent stage is still there. The ascent stage is not there, right? So there's many different examples. Let me go, and what I'm going to do is go to Apollo Project Archive and show you. By the way, Project Apollo Archive is the easiest way to look at the photo albums from each mission from Apollo. You can also go to the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal and you can see the photos from there. But probably the easiest way to do it is they're all uploaded on this Flickr website that you can go to. So you can go, for example, the famous magazine is 40, where the astronauts are purportedly showing the lunar module landed on the moon, of course. And here it is. Let's show you. So this would be the stage where there was a rocket that slowed the descent and landed on the moon. Then there's a secondary rocket on the top part, and the top part would blast off and leave this descent stage there. So what they're saying is they're concerned that a craft is going to go near the landing sites. It's going to go off course and boom, land and crush and destroy this, I guess, historical artifact that we want to preserve. I don't know why we want to preserve it. It never even landed there, of course. If it did land there, it was an unmanned probe. Okay? So anyway, that's what they're talking about. Or maybe, the alleged footprints on the moon, the craft is going to land and mess those up, I guess. So footprints, any artifacts, the flag that, allegedly may be there. That's what they're talking about when they refer to protecting the landing sites. Okay, so anyway, going back to this, it says the first two scenarios occur near the surface, and the ejective flux projection of the 2-kilometer touchdown exclusion radius will prevent those. For the third scenario, in case of a complete loss of thrust, the instantaneous impact point of the vehicle lies in the plane of trajectory. So what they're saying here is that their concern, of course, is that something's going to crash land and destroy the sites. Anyway, isn't that fascinating that you can't send a craft up close to verify the existence of Apollo? Now, I know what our trolls like to say is that when they visit our group, they say, well, there were the craft, they call it the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, and the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter it orbited near the Apollo landing sites and took pictures, and those pictures are proof that those artifacts are still there, of course, right? Now, what this law does is it prohibits anybody from going anywhere near the Apollo landing site. So you have to get special permission. It says exception here at the bottom. The administrator may waive the conditions or requirements. So what they're doing is they're saying that nobody can go near, under U.S. federal law, the Apollo landing sites without U.S. government permission. Okay. Now, maybe another government can go near the Apollo landing sites, but those other governments have treaties where they're supposed to follow U.S. law. So no other country is just going to violate what U.S. is codified into law without working out a deal with NASA first, of course, right? They're not just going to ignore and blow off NASA and go there without, of course, permission. Nonetheless, there are some governments that have photographed the landing sites, and I want to end the live stream by showing you why we would doubt the evidence purporting that men have taken subsequent images in 2011 or 2022 alleging to have landed on the moon, okay? Or not, alleged that men landed on the moon. So this is the cover image for the Moon Landing Hoax Facebook group. I put together this myself. I'm going to go into this in much greater detail in a future live stream, of course, right? So to the left is an image taken by the U.S. Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter probe, and these two took images ostensibly between 2011 and 2013. This is image number M175124932R. It's an image of Apollo manned landing site, allegedly from Apollo 11. That's on the left here I'm circling. And you can see the alleged descent stage. So this is what the bottom part looked like. You can see the four-legged symmetry I'm showing you here. And then India, they call it the Chandrayaan-2 probe. Now there's a Chandrayaan-1. It did not take images of Apollo artifacts, but this image was published in a Zoom presentation by Indian officials on April 2nd of 2021. And what does it show? Three-legged symmetry. How can you have four-legged symmetry and three-legged symmetry? I know our trolls like to say, well, the leg is hiding, right? It's just over here. You can't see it, or it's over here. Nope. Look at the symmetry. Triangular. Look at the symmetry. It is a square. Now, note the landing sites are identical. The craters match perfectly. India is even alleging that this is of the Apollo 11 landing site. Why don't they match? Why? Because they put an unmanned craft on the moon. They did not land men on the moon because they cannot send human beings beyond low Earth orbit. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed a presentation today. I do these entirely off the cuff. Obviously I have a full-time job. I work many hours and have a lot of other responsibilities, but I'm what I call a hobbyist moon landing denier, right? So I love doing this. I've done many years of research on this, and I've written articles on my website, stratagemsoftheright.blogspot.com, and you can look at all my moon landing hoax articles there. But I figured I would upload these live streams to YouTube and Facebook. So I'm sorry if they sound a little bit, I guess, unrehearsed. I don't professionally do these in a studio. They're kind of dirty, off-the-cuff videos. But the information I'm presenting is 100% valid. I'm screen sharing. I'm showing where I'm getting the information. I'm giving you citations. I'm giving you and sharing text with you the actual laws passed. I'm showing you the text of the laws, and I'm showing you hardcore evidence that they are trying to cover up the fact that the moon landings were a hoax. Anyway, that's about all today, guys. Look forward to talking to you on the next live stream. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you then. Take care. Bye-bye.